Bum, 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 bum.
Hey, it's your boy. When you listen to the thing, you're not gonna hear me. Look for you. These headphones are broken now.
I'll never forget this night. The pizza place I worked at was about to close, and I was getting ready to go home when the phone rang. I was working the counter alone that night, so I was taking calls. I picked up the phone. There was complete silence, so I hung up. About a minute later, the phone rings again, so I pick up again. Still silence. I was about to hang up again when I heard the very weak and cold voice of an old woman on the other end. She said she wanted a regular pie delivered. I remained polite on the phone, but on the inside I was screaming. I just wanted to get home and end my shift. I called out to my boss that somebody is requesting a delivery. He told me I had to go. I was upset at first, but I realized it's another tip, and the old ones usually tip the most, so I decided it was okay. I took down the address and told her it would be there soon, but she had already hung up. I thought that was rude, but I ignored it and yelled to the chef that I needed one regular. My boss told me to just go home after the delivery as the place would be closed, so a little before 10 o'clock, I got in my car and put the address into my GPS. The house was 7 miles away. The GPS took me to the quiet side of town. I arrived to the house. It was a small, one-floor house on a very quiet and empty block. I took the pizza and walked up to the door and rang the doorbell. There were no lights on in the house. I hoped that she hadn't given me the wrong address. I rang the doorbell again. There was still no answer. I was about to give up when I turned my head and saw somebody standing at the window. I got a little freaked out and backed up at first, but I eventually got closer to the window to see the person. It was an old woman, probably in her late 70s. She was just staring at me with a blank expression. I yelled to her through the glass that I had her pizza. She didn't react to what I said, so I screamed it louder. A big smile ran across her face. Not a pleasant, genuine smile. It was a smile that sent chills down my spine. I still remember that exact face she made through the window. I decided that I was freaked out enough and got back to my car and set the pizza in the passenger seat. I had to text my boss about this. I shot him a quick text and started my car, ready to get the hell away. I looked to my right to get one more look, to see the woman standing right outside my passenger side window, giving me the same stare she had given me before. I put my car in drive and floored it down the street, not looking back. My boss never made me do a late night delivery again.
I would never do that alone. And that was the only thing I was about to say. That was a quick video.
This happened 4 years ago when I was still in high school. I was told to do my last delivery of my shift. I got in my car, which was a 1999 Camry, perfect for delivering pizzas. I GPSed the address on my phone. I live upstate in the country, so all pizza deliveries were long drives. I remember the sun was starting to set, so it was probably around 7 o'clock. I'd say after a good 15 minutes of driving through the foresty dirt roads, my GPS said I had arrived. It was an old little cottage-like house made almost entirely of wood. It was sitting all by itself in the middle of absolutely nothing but forest. The lawn was completely unkept, as the grass was almost at knee height. I was used to this kind of thing, so I didn't think much of it. I took the pizza to the front door. There was no doorbell, so I knocked loudly on the door. Within 10 seconds, I heard the sound of footsteps hitting wood on the inside of the house. The footsteps made it to the door and stopped. I started to feel uneasy. I got the feeling that I was being watched, and that's when I noticed there was a peephole in the door. "It's the pizza guy," I called out. I heard a low, harsh-sounding voice on the other side of the door, telling me to bring the pizza out back. I didn't like the idea of going back there. Something didn't seem right. "Are you sure, sir?" I called out.
Yes.
He didn't answer my question. The sound of footsteps didn't move away from the door, so I had the feeling he was still watching me. I almost found myself walking back to my car, but I decided I didn't want any trouble with my boss. The last time I brought a pizza back, he gave me attitude, so I reluctantly walked through the uncut grass and
Found my other headphones. My better headphones. I bought 2 headphones because I knew one of them would break. And I was good to do that because I eat cool. And you. That's the one going nowhere. Yeah, I'm the type of guy who would never get scared. I never am. What the fuck?
a table with 4 chairs surrounding it. In one of the chairs, facing away from me, I saw the head of somebody sitting in the seat. I began walking over and said, "Excuse me," but the person didn't even move an inch. "Excuse me,"
What?
I said again louder. Then from behind, I heard, "Psst, over here." I turned around to see a man poking his head out from the corner of the house, looking at me with a crazed smile. "Come over
What
here.
is wrong with
I wanna
these
show you something."
headphones?
I freaked out, turned around, and ran around the house in the opposite direction, back to my car, for some reason still holding the pizza. I got in my car, started it, and got away from there. On my way back to the pizzeria, I pulled over to the side of the road and called the police. Eventually, I was informed that there was no sign of anybody having been in that house for a long time. I quit my delivery job a few days after that. I have no idea what would have happened to me had I gone up to that man, but to this day, I still wish I had just turned my head to see who or what was sitting in that patio chair.
My other headphone ain't working. This is making me mad now.
I was doing late-night deliveries during this particular shift. When I worked this job, I lived in the Poconos. It was very rural up there. I often found myself driving down roads surrounded by nothing but trees, just like this night. Only it was dark and foggy this time. Driving down a shortcut to town that I had taken many times before, I slam on the brakes when I see somebody jump out from the bushes onto the road. The sickening bump and thump from the front of the car confirmed that I had hit the person. I put my hand to my forehead, cursing to myself. I couldn't believe what just happened. I just hit a person. I got out of my car and checked to see if they were alright.
There was no way there.
It was a man wearing a black hoodie with the hood up. He lay motionless by my car tire. I had no idea what to do. At this point, I was panicking. Why the hell was this guy in the middle of nowhere? Why did he jump in front of my car? And then things got weirder. I can hear a scream for help, coming from the woods to the left of me. Somebody was in trouble. I looked at the man I hit with my car. He was still on the ground, motionless. I'd only be gone for a minute, I figured. For whatever stupid reason, I thought it was okay to leave the man behind, to go into the woods. I moved in the direction I heard the scream originally, hoping to hear another, but it was just total silence, except for the night creatures making their sounds. "Where are you?" I yelled out. It was at that moment I heard the sound of a foot crushing the leaves on the ground. I turned in the direction of the sound, and even in the dark and foggy weather, I could still make out the figure of somebody hiding behind a tree opposite me. I ran as fast as I could back to my car, looking back constantly to make sure I wasn't being followed. When I got back to my car, the man I had hit was gone. I didn't stick around to wonder where he went. I just got back in my car and proceeded down the road. My heart was racing the whole drive through, but I still ended up delivering the pizza. I got to the house, and when I rang the bell, a middle-aged woman answered. After paying, I noticed that her eyes focused on something behind me, and then she asked me, "They let you guys have delivery partners now?" I was confused and asked her what she meant, and she told me, "You got someone with you in your car." I felt a pain in my stomach as I turned and saw somebody sitting in the back seat of my car. I called called the cops using the woman's phone, and they arrived shortly after, but the person in the back seat of my car was already gone. The scariest thing about this whole story, the police found a blood-stained knife on the floor of my car where the man was hiding. This memory still haunts me every day, and I can genuinely tell you, it's painfully scary just to imagine how things could have turned out if I hadn't made the delivery.
Yeah, but that's almost so scarier. Yeah, that's almost so scarier. Respect. Respect, though. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum, bum.
Number 3. I'm a 22-year-old girl. I was looking on Craigslist to buy a couch for my new apartment a month ago. I found something I thought seemed like a good deal. From the pictures, the couch seemed to be in great shape. The seller wanted to be contacted by email. His email was mexicanpoppy666@hotmail.com.
Mexican
I felt
Poppy.
that email was a bit
Ay,
off-putting,
papi.
but I still went ahead and emailed the man my offer. He responded within 5 minutes, accepting the offer and asking for my address. I honestly felt uncomfortable with his asking. I did not want a stranger coming to my house. I suggested that I just come to his house to pick it up, but he continually insisted that he come to my house. Eventually I stopped responding, and a day later, he emailed me again, giving me his address. I didn't know if I should go at that point, but it seemed like a steal, almost too good to be true, and according to his address, he didn't live too far. So I got in my van and drove over to the seller's house. I immediately noticed that the house was a bit smaller than all the other houses on the block. When I rang the bell, a middle-aged man wearing a baseball cap answered the door. He gave me a huge smile and invited me in. I was immediately feeling uneasy. He led me into his living room, and I saw the couch. Immediately, I saw scuff marks and small tears in the couch. It was not at all in the shape that it appeared in the ad. I commented on this, and he just smiled and offered to lower the price. I told him I'm not interested, and here's where things started getting creepy. As I was making my way out of the house, he put his hand on my shoulder and offered to give it to me for free if I was willing to, quote-unquote, give something to him. I let out a disgusted gasp and got back into my car.
Ugh.
I didn't even look up out the window. I just drove away from there quickly. But it doesn't end there. That same night, I was laying in my bed watching TV when I thought I heard somebody stomping up the steps of my porch. I muted the TV and was able to clearly hear the sound of somebody fiddling with my front doorknob. I jumped out of my bed and tiptoed over to the front door to look through the peephole.
It was the same
Whoever
person.
it was already gone. And then, I thought I could hear the sound of the gate to the backyard opening and closing. That was when I grabbed the phone and dialed 911. Soon after, I heard the sound of somebody fiddling with the doorknob to the back door of the apartment. I yelled to whoever it was that the police were on their way, and after that, I heard the sound of the gate opening and closing again. They were gone. This was a month ago, and nothing has happened since, but I still can't sleep at night. I'm 99% sure it was the man that was selling the couch. He must have followed me home. There's no way it was just a coincidence. I don't plan on using Craigslist anymore, and I'm still trying to find a new apartment. Number 2. I was looking for a car to buy for my son for his 18th birthday. I was searching all the typical car websites.
There's the opening right
eBay
here.
Motors. They were all overpriced as expected. Craigslist was the only place to find an actual deal. About a week into my search, I found an 03 Toyota Camry. It had 67,000 miles, no accidents, no damage, and good condition for only $3,500. This seemed like a steal for such a reliable car with such low mileage. The seller lived about 10 miles from me, which was a reasonable drive when looking for a car. I gave him a call to set up a time to come check it out. The man sounded normal on the phone. He assured me that there were absolutely no problems with the car. He introduced himself as Bob.
Bob.
I brought along $3,500 in cash, even though I planned on wiggling down the price as much as possible. I pulled up the dirt road to Bob's property about 15 minutes early. It was a tiny little house with a decent-sized property, only because it was a bit far from the nearest neighbors. The garage was open, so I walked over to see if anybody was inside, but except for an unusual amount of car parts, it was empty. The car was nowhere in sight. The only car on the property was an old pickup truck. I went over to the front door to check the house numbers. It was the right address. The doorbell button was missing, so I knocked on the front door. I knocked for exactly 5 minutes before deciding to give the man a call. So I dialed his number and I heard the sound of a cell phone ringing from inside the house. I was extremely confused at this point. Now I knew I had the right house. I didn't understand why, if he was home, why he wasn't answering. I decided I had to take a peek through one of the windows to see if anybody was inside. Peering through the glass, I couldn't really see much as it was pretty dark inside the house. I saw a very old-fashioned dining room set, but across from that, I saw somebody standing at the back door of the house, staring outside. I figured that must have been Bob, so I knocked on the window, but he didn't even move. There was no gate or anything to the backyard. It was just a wide open yard since this wasn't a rural area. I simply walked around the house to the backyard. I didn't understand how he couldn't hear me. When I got to the back door, I made a shocking realization. The figure standing by the door was a taxidermied human being. I ran straight back the way I came and back to my car. I looked up one last time before driving off. The blinds to the window I had peeked into had been shut, but I could see 2 of the blinds bent open. Somebody was at that window watching me. You can probably guess I had the gas pedal to the floor the whole way home. The whole situation still makes no sense. All the car parts, the fact that there was no Toyota Camry, the taxidermied human being. The fact that there was no car there leads me to believe that whoever that man wasn't planning on selling me anything. And that also leads to the disturbing thought that I was very close to becoming a lifeless statue staring out that man's back door. Number 1. I was looking to buy the iPhone 5 about a year ago. I found a guy on Craigslist who was selling his for $200. He claimed it was in mint condition and that he wanted to upgrade to the 5C. I didn't know much about how to go about testing a phone to make sure everything works, so I brought my little brother along who knew a lot more than I did. We met halfway at a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot at like 10 o'clock at night. 2 large, intimidating guys stepped out of a black Honda Civic and walked over to us. One of the guys pulled out the phone and showed it to me. It didn't have a scratch on it. My brother took out my SIM card and popped it into this new phone. He did some testing and told me that it works. The guy then asked for $250, even though he originally asked for $200. I lied and told him I only brought $200, and he seemed a bit unhappy with this. I did have $250, but I didn't want to spend more than his original asking price. I kind of figured it was his way of making sure I didn't haggle down the price. I handed the guy the $200, and he and his buddy got back in their car. We got back into my car, and I tested out the new phone by calling my girlfriend. I sat testing things around for about 5 minutes. My brother commented on the fact that the 2 guys hadn't left yet either, but I didn't really care. I started the car and pulled out of the parking lot. My brother then commented that the 2 guys started their car just as I had. I didn't find it too weird. I drove down the turnpike and eventually stopped at a red light. That's when I noticed the black Honda Civic pull up right behind us in my rear view mirror. I found that a bit weird since I was sure they came from the opposite direction. I continued my drive home, but every single turn we made, they followed, and close on my tail too. My brother suggested I pull over, but there was no way I was going to do that. I knew those guys were looking for trouble. It got to the point where I was trying to lose them and started driving dangerously. If they needed something, they would call or at least honk their horn, but they were looking for some kind of trouble. I tried something risky to lose them. At an intersection, the light had just turned red. I floored it across the intersection before any of the cars would begin to pass. My brothers shouted at me, calling me stupid and crazy, but it worked. They didn't follow.
They
I
followed
got
you
home
home.
after the extra
Huh.
long drive.
They got a tracker on
My
that
heart was still
phone.
racing from the intensity of the situation. I was just happy I got a working phone for such a low cost.
You had just
Later
a low
that night,
cost.
I was playing around with the phone, trying to set some things up before going to bed. My parents and brother were already asleep at this point.
Yo, mom,
Just then,
somebody got
the sound of
tired.
2 car doors slamming shut outside interrupted me. I looked out my window, and I felt like my heart completely stopped. The black Honda Civic was parked across the street. I could only assume the 2 guys were already halfway to our front door. I immediately woke up my dad and explained everything as quickly as possible. He got up, grabbed a baseball bat, and crouched behind the front door. A loud knock came at the front door. My dad screamed at them to go away. One of the guys on the other side of the door claimed to have a gun and said that he would shoot the lock off of the door if he didn't open up. My dad told me to call Joe, our friend who lives 2 doors down who happens to be a police officer. I called Joe and he said he would be right over and to stay hidden. Here's the part that still scares me to this day. There was the sound of a silenced shot of a pistol. I peeked over and saw a bullet hole in the door, inches away from my dad's head. My dad ran away from the door and we all listened. We heard Joe outside yelling at them to drop their weapons. My dad went outside to help when they lowered their guns. Joe arrested the 2 assholes. I have to say, this was the scariest day of my life, but it was also the best I had ever felt in my entire life.
Hey, at least they put some scary on that. I was terrified. They was talking about scared. Yeah, I'm still scared, but we're gonna watch one more video. Oh! You ain't have to do that. Why you ain't have to do that?
Our mission is to produce programs and online content for African women as they try to build their businesses.
No, it didn't scare me. It hurt my head.
I'm a co-founder.
It hurt in my ear, man. What happened if y'all would have heard? They got it on about, what is this, 100%? 100%?
Easier and faster than the old Mac that I used to use. You can configure it in so many different ways. It just, I don't know, it feels really cool. I feel like
50 minutes of blowing your top. That's a 50 minutes of squeezing, 50 minutes of pleasing, 50 minutes of blowing them tops, them top. If your young man ain't feeling you right, it's hard to do in that. Yeah, since I'm a 50-minute man, oh yeah.
As in Craigslist, she found an ad titled something like "Roommate Wanted, Females Only." This sort of thing was common since the area she was looking in was mostly young professionals.
50-minute
Listing was for a
man, oh
room in the
yeah.
house for about $225 a month, which was quite cheap compared to most of the other places listed.
Man,
The occupant listed herself as a 23-year-old college student that
you
wasn't
don't
comfortable with living
love
in meals.
me
The
anymore.
other roommate would have their own room and attached bathroom. So far, Amanda was into this place. However, the listing only had a single photo from outside the property.
Hey, there's a sign for my
Within 30 minutes, she receives an email back with all the
Don't
details
they
and time to stop
know it's
by. The
the
girl worked late
end
hours
of
and
the
wanted Amanda to
world
stop by.
if you
When
don't
Amanda
love
arrives,
me
there's a
anymore?
handwritten note on the front door saying, "Door broken, use back door." Walking around the house, it looks nice, but slightly unkempt. Tall grass, weeds, dusty windows,
Mafia
etc.
4.
Still no alarms for Amanda, though. When she knocks on the back door, an older man opens. At first, Amanda thinks that she has the wrong house, but the man reassures her and says that the occupant was out and that he was the landlord. The occupant asked him to meet Amanda since she was working late.
Occupant.
He seemed pleasant and offered to show her around.
He gave it
Alarms
a...
start going off, but aren't at red alert yet. First, the guy was clearly in his 40s, unshaven, and looked like he lived in his car. Also, only the kitchen light was on. As they walked around the house, Amanda noticed one huge red flag. No furniture. Nothing. The landlord was polite about answering questions, but seemed irritable to keeping the lights on for too long, rushing her around and only letting her look at rooms for a few moments. There was a single room that the landlord wouldn't open, telling her that it was the occupant's room and he didn't want to invade her privacy. As they walked down the hall into the living room, she notices the front door has a plank nailed across it. Quote-unquote broken for sure. Amanda's creepometer is starting to ding, so she decides to wrap up the walkthrough and leave, but trying to be polite. As she's given the guy her "thanks for the showing" bit, he perks up and states that he forgot to show her the basement. He claims it's recently furnished and would be a great rec room, and she should take a look down there. At the time, Amanda and the landlord are standing in the small hallway between the front living room and the back kitchen. In this little hallway was the basement door. When he opens the door, it opens outward to create something of a barrier between Amanda and the back door. The basement is pitch black. He smiles, motions down the stairs, and says, "Ladies first." What happens next is nothing more than a stroke of luck. Amanda gets a text just as some random person parks in front of the house. Thinking on her feet, she pretends it's a phone call and answers her phone. "Hey, yeah, are you here? I'll come out from around back and let you in." "It's great, you have to see it." With a motion of confidence, she excuses herself around the landlord and walks out of the back door. She says the guy just looked at her like he was confused. Once outside, she sprinted to her car and sped like hell out of there. When Amanda got home, she told her mother and my brother everything. Cops were called. They took her statement and went to investigate. The Craigslist post had been removed. The house had been foreclosed over 6 months earlier. It was found out that the house had been foreclosed over 6 months earlier.
You just said that.
Had been abandoned. When the police investigated, they found that the closed room that the so-called landlord didn't want her to look in was where the man had been staying. There was a pile of old dirty blankets, rotten food, and empty gallon jugs everywhere. More creepy was he had plastered ripped-up pages from porno magazines on all the walls in the room. The really scary part of this was the basement. The man had tied a thin piece of fishing twine at about shin level across the stairs about halfway down. The basement was empty except another pile of old blankets, a broom handle wrapped in leather belts, and a small box with a few rolls of assorted tape.
How are you? You're welcome.
I was up late looking for goalie equipment on Craigslist some night in the summer. I was only 14 and had no job, and therefore no money, so I had to find the cheapest deal possible. I didn't really care about the condition of anything. I came across an ad that seemed like a steal. The pictures showed the pads, blocker, glove, and stick. They were all in visibly good condition. It was only listed for $50. That seemed like an insane deal. I contacted the seller via text, and he asked me a few questions, one of which was how old I am. I responded 14, and he told me he's glad to hear that I'm dedicated at a young age. It didn't really seem weird to me what he said at the time, but now that I look back on it, I should have been wiser. I asked the seller for his address, but he instead asked me what town I'm from, and that he could just meet me somewhere walking distance from my house. I didn't know how I felt about this, but I really wanted that equipment.
But you're really dumb.
In the parking lot of the mall, which is literally down the block from my house. I stood alone in the exact spot I described for a few minutes, until I heard somebody toot their horn. I noticed a white van parked away from all the other cars. And then I received a text saying that he was in the white van. I replied telling him to come out with the equipment, but he said it would be easier to do the transaction in the van. I had a really bad feeling about this, and hightailed away from there. I ran down the block, and when I looked back, I saw the white van driving down the street behind me.
You know, I would have smashed. I would have been back up. No. I would have ran as fast as I could. I'd have been like, God.
I got into some random person's backyard and hopped over the fence. I was on the opposite side of the block now. Within 20 seconds, the white van passed by and turned the next turn, vanishing from sight. It was safe to run back to my house now. My parents flipped shit on me when I told them about it. I didn't get the tag number or a good look at their faces, so all they could report was a suspicious white van. The Craigslist ad was taken down, so I couldn't show it to my parents. I thought it was over, but that night, I heard a vehicle engine running outside. I looked out my window down to the street.
It was the same
saw
white
the
van.
sitting across the street. But as soon as I looked out the window, the van drove off down the road out of sight. I haven't seen it since. I don't know if they saw me or not, or if they somehow found my address. It makes me paranoid to this day. I was selling a dining room set on Craigslist. I listed it for $1,200, but put slightly negotiable in the title. It was a good-looking set, but I wasn't getting any offers. I did live in the country though, so not a lot of people lived in my town. I finally received a call about the set. The man on the other end of the phone had a very shaky voice, and he sounded a bit off, but I can't really explain how. He wanted to check out the set to make an offer, so I gave him my address, and he said he would be over within the hour. I dusted off all the furniture one more time to make it look as nice as possible. The doorbell rang within 10 minutes. I was shocked. He must have lived really close, which in my area was very surprising. I opened the door and immediately felt uncomfortable about letting this man into my house. He was wearing a white undershirt with yellow stains scattered all over it. His pants were way too baggy and had a few tears in them. His gray mustache stained brown in the middle, and his hair a complete mess. Basically everything you shouldn't look in public, he looked. Basically everything you shouldn't look in public, he looked. He greeted me with a hello in the same shaky voice as before. I invited him in, and he immediately caught a glimpse of the dining room set, since the dining room is the first room you see in the house. He began walking around really slowly, making weird sounds and making sure to feel every inch of every piece of furniture. I was very weirded out watching this and decided to break the silence by bringing up the price. I reminded him that my asking price was $1,200, and then he stopped, looked up at me, and gave me the most unnerving smile I had ever seen. "How about $500? He asked me. I laughed a bit at the insane offer, almost thinking he was joking, but when his smile turned to an angry expression, I knew he wasn't. I apologized and told him that's much too low for me. The lowest I would be willing to go is $1,000. The man then started acting even weirder. He put his hands up to his head and started making strange noises again, pacing back and forth. He then looked at me with a look of anger and hatred. This man was not right in the head. I realized it just then and there, and I needed him out of my house. I apologized to him again and thanked him for coming, which was the most obvious way of me letting him know it was time for him to leave. But he didn't move. At this point, the stare he was giving me was obviously a stare of malice. This man was much bigger than me, and I didn't think I could take him in a fight. But then the man moved his hand to his back pocket, and I quickly assumed he was reaching for a gun. I ran upstairs to my bedroom to my closet, leaving the man alone in the dining room. In my closet, I grabbed my .45, loaded it, and took cover behind the wall, sneaking a peek into the dining room. The man was gone. I went back to my room and locked the door. I called the police and took cover behind my bed in the meantime. It felt like hours before I heard the police sirens outside my house. However, I stayed put behind my bed. For all I knew, that man was right outside my bedroom door. Thankfully, I hadn't locked the door, and I heard the police enter my house. I left the bedroom with my hands raised and showed them my ID. They had me wait outside while they continued their search. I sat there for probably 5 minutes before the 2 police officers stepped out of my house, with the man in handcuffs. They told me something disturbing. He was hiding in my pantry closet with a loaded gun. I feel it's only a miracle that the police weren't shot at, but the thing that still haunts me the most to this day was the look that man gave me through the window of the police car as it drove off. A look of malice and hatred, like the first thing he would plan to do after getting out of jail would be to come back for me.
You know what that means? Move out the joint.
I can't deal with the constant paranoia of that man coming back.
God, move out the
From
joint.
this is to be very careful when giving your address to people from Craigslist.
From Craigslist. Don't ever give nobody from Craigslist your number. You gotta get their number, so when you go there, you shoot them. You gotta be the insane people, okay? This video gonna be a long video. Luigi, oh Luigi.
Ever since I can remember, we've always had one of those old vintage Parker Brother Ouija boards sitting in our closet collecting dust. When I was a kid, I always wondered what it was. From the box, it seemed like a horrible board game, until one day I found out what a Ouija board really is, and immediately dug it out of the closet. I insisted on my brother trying it out with me, and eventually got him to play along. We put our hands on the planchette, and I began asking the typical cliche questions like, is there anybody there? And can you answer me? Other than my brother jokingly moving the planchette around to imitate an answer from some kind of entity, there was no real response. After getting bored, we put the game back in the box.
Yeah, I forgot to say goodbye.
I did a little research that night to find out how to make Ouija boards work. Many people said online that the most ideal environment when using a Ouija board is in a dark room only lit by candles. So
Yeah, I
when my
forgot to
parents
say
went home,
goodbye.
I managed to gather like
Yeah, I
6 or
forgot
7
to say.
candles.
Oh my
and convinced my
God.
brother to try it one more time.
You gotta
I
read the
lit the
rules.
candles
It says
and
you
set
gotta
them
say
around the table in the
goodbye.
dining room with all the lights out.
You freaking
tried one more time.
retards.
I asked again if there was anybody there. The planchette began to move. I told my brother to stop moving it, but he swore he wasn't. I told him to move his hand away, and he did. It kept moving. My brother thought I was messing with him, but I didn't pay attention. The planchette landed on the word yes. I was only 9, so I was legitimately shitting myself. My older brother had to take over. He asked the question, "Are you a good spirit?" There was a 5-second pause before my brother's hand moved along with the planchette to the word no. We both looked at each other, and at this point I ran to my room and shut the door behind me, but he continued on with the so-called game. I heard his muffled voice come from down in the dining room, when all of a sudden I heard him screaming at the top of his lungs. I ran back downstairs to see what was wrong. He was holding up his shirt, revealing a small open wound that almost looked like a claw mark. He told me to set the fireplace immediately, and I obeyed. He threw the thing in the fireplace and told me to never speak of what happened to anybody. We have never used a Ouija board since. I got a call from my cousin who said that he, his brother, his dad, and his best friend were using a Ouija board.
You know I would have joined that if it's all 4 of us. But I gotta remember the rules. We gotta make sure there wasn't no graveyard.
My cousin took a short break because the board was just spouting nonsense and he had to go to the bathroom. His dad and brother and friends started asking the board questions without him. One of the questions was, who is in the other room? It just started spouting random numbers, and when my cousin came back into the room, his brother said that it wasn't working, that they were going to put it away, and he showed him the answer to the last question he asked, and he said, "Dude, that's my social security number." Then they started to talk to whatever started spewing answers out. It told my cousin he would die in the Air Force. At this point, they tell the entity they're communicating with to prove itself. It then spelled out the word doll, and they immediately got a bad feeling. They opened the door to check on the porcelain doll they had laid in the other room, and when they opened the door, the doll was standing up right in front of the door, staring at them. Everyone freaked out and ran out of the house. His best friend burned the Ouija board, and I think he temporarily went nuts for a few months. My cousin, for some reason, then joined the Air Force, and is on a base in Europe now. I had some of my friends over one night, so we tried out the Ouija board we found in someone's garbage. It had the board and the glass piece that you hold onto. The 4 of us held onto the piece and asked stupid questions. Just
It was in the garbage and it was playing
at
it.
all times, one of us were moving around the glass piece just to try and fool the others. When one of my friends went to the bathroom and the other got bored, it was just me and one of my other friends still holding onto it. I asked the board when I will die, and the piece started slowly moving to the letter T. I I laughed, looking at my friend, thinking it was him, but he just told me that he thought it was me. The piece then moved to the letter O, and then N, and then back to O, and then R, and then I realized that it was spelling out the word tomorrow. My friend let go of it, and it stopped moving, so I was convinced that it was him, but he swore left and right it wasn't him. But here's where it gets horrifying. The next day, while walking my dog to the preserve, my dog's collar suddenly snapped and he was free from the leash. He darted into the road and I immediately chased after him, only to hear the horn of an oncoming car blaring and getting louder. I dove as fast as I could out of the way, just barely grazing the car with my foot as it passed. But it didn't end there. The same day, while sitting under the ceiling fan in the kitchen on full blast,
Hey, bro.
I got up to get something out of the fridge, and behind me, I heard a loud crashing sound as all the glass on the table was shattered and everything fell onto the floor. The fan had fallen off the ceiling, and I was inches away from being decapitated. I really don't know if I find it to be a coincidence that the day after the Ouija board said I would die the next day, that I had 2 near-death experiences. All I know is I'm never touching a Ouija board again. I have never really told people about this. We had a huge closet full of old board games, and one of them happened to be a Ouija board. I always wanted to try it out, but my family was always home, and I felt weird trying it in front of them. There was this one weekend that my parents were going to the city, and my brother was going on a Boy Scout campout, so I would have the whole house to myself for a weekend. It might have been pathetic that I was more excited to try out a Ouija board than to party with friends while the house was empty. The weather was terrible, windy and rainy, but I felt that a rainy night would actually make it more ritualistic. Around midnight, I set up the board in my dining room and dimmed the lights. I asked a bunch of questions that generated no answers, so I eventually put the board away and went to bed. I woke up in the middle of the night to hear a creaking noise downstairs by the front door. At first I thought nothing of it, but then I heard it again, and it was closer this time, closer to the stairs. I sat up now. At this point I was getting concerned. Another creaking sound, this time from one of the stairs. I was sure somebody was in my house. This was before cell phones were mainstream, so calling the police wasn't even an option. The creaking sounds were getting closer until they were right outside my door, and then they just stopped. It felt like hours while I laid there clutching my covers, waiting for something to happen. A huge strike of lightning momentarily lit up my bedroom, and I swore I could see some kind of black limb-type objects wrapped around the open door. I tried to hold my breath to be as quiet as possible, but what happened next was the worst part. My door suddenly slammed shut, and I couldn't help but let out a shriek. By now I was completely under my covers, shaking and crying and wanting to scream. All the windows in the house were closed, so there was no draft. I just knew something was going to happen, but nothing happened. I sat under my covers for hours, thinking somebody or something was in the room with me. When the sun started to rise, I finally snuck a peek out of my covers. My room was just as empty as before. I somehow found the courage to leave my bedroom and search for any signs of a break-in. Everything looked normal, though. No broken windows or unlocked doors. I then spotted the Ouija board on the table again. I have always been kind of superstitious, so I immediately linked the happenings to the Ouija board. I chucked the damn thing in the outside trash can and brought it out front to the curb. Since then, nothing has happened, and I didn't tell anybody about it. You wouldn't understand unless you were in that kind of situation. Then you would agree that nobody would believe a word you say. Nobody really knows except for the people that read my story online. I know for a fact that those events were linked to the Ouija board. I can tell you from personal experience that trying a Ouija board is a huge mistake. It was the summer of 2013. My friend had a vintage Ouija board that was allegedly worth a decent amount of money.
Never in my life try it.
With me for a video game that I never played, so I happily made the trade. I tried using it alone, but it proved to be just a scam. I didn't really expect it to work. I mainly got it just for the money to be made off of it. I threw the stupid thing on the floor of my living room and forgot about it. Everything was going normal until the next morning. I woke up and found that the 2 plants I had sitting on my coffee table had been knocked over, and the Ouija board was sitting on the table. I didn't remember putting it there, nor did I understand how the plants could have fallen over. Wind was definitely not an answer. I wondered if it was possible that I had sleepwalked, or maybe I was half awake and walked down to get a glass of water and bumped into them or something. I moved everything back in place. The carpet already had gold stains on it. I brought the Ouija board box up to my room and tossed it on the floor. Things got bad that night. While laying awake in the dark, I was disturbed by the sound of a muffled click. I looked up, not sure what it was. And then I saw through the cracks of my closet door that my closet light was on.
Listen. These are rules for a Ouija board. Don't play with the graveyard. With the graveyard and grave. Dude. What was that? No. I'm so sad. It keeps saying it was ended, but it ain't ended. Yeah. Okay, I'm done. Okay, so you'd play at a graveyard, don't play alone. What was it? Don't play alone, don't always say goodbye, bruh. You're never in movies. They never say goodbye. They always never say, oh my god. Bruh, if I was in that situation, every time I would say goodbye, bruh. Say goodbye. You don't say goodbye, that makes it worse. That's a door from anywhere. That's a door of anything can come out of the. It's like a door from another realm. You open the door from another realm. Whatever's in the other realm will come out. Then once you go back to say goodbye, the person's already out. So if you lock the other realm, none of them can come in. But if you keep the other realm unlocked, then you messed up. Whoa, oh baby, oh baby, oh yeah. Okay.
No idea how it could have turned on, but I got up and opened the closet door anyway. There was nobody in there, but that hadn't even crossed my mind. I turned the light off and jumped back into bed. Probably 10 minutes later, I heard the same clicking sound. Naturally, I looked to the closet and felt my heart sink a little. The closet light was on again. A mix of confusion and fear started building up inside of me. I once again turned off the light and cautiously got back in my bed. I found myself waiting for the closet light to click on again, but what happened instead was much worse.
Yes.
Instead of the closet light turning on, the whole room suddenly filled with light as I heard the main light switch flick on. I had seen enough and was out the door within seconds. I quickly pieced things together and chucked that old Ouija board in the closest dumpster. Nothing weird ever happened after that.
How long do I got until this is over? 67 minutes?
This
Yo,
happened
I
about
would
7
never
years ago,
dab
on
in
a
my life,
Halloween night.
y'all. Never
It was
dab
pretty
in
late,
my.
close to midnight, so all the kids in the neighborhood had already gone home. Even our neighbors across the way had stopped playing their corny Halloween tape. You know, the ones with the creaking door sounds and witch cackling. It was just me and my
It's
cousin
Annabelle doll.
sitting in the room. Now, my other cousin, who was about 4 years old, had left her doll laying on the floor face
Wait,
down.
let me make something funny
It was
here.
one of those baby alive dolls or something like that. The ones with the moving eyelids. Q had issues with that doll the moment it was bought. She hated it and said it was creepy. In fact, she often threw it down the basement stairs. I had no problems with it, and so it stayed on the floor so my little cousin could pick it up in the morning. It was very quiet for about half an hour.
Yo, I'm one of her eyes, y'all.
Loud, rasping, shuffling noise that seemed to be coming from outside. It sounded like an older man right outside our window. I turned to Q, who looked back at me. Did you hear that?
Did you hear that?
It's probably the neighbor's taping.
Probably the eye, you know. It's me.
Back to typing on her computer. It was silent for another minute before we heard the rasping noise again, louder this time.
Dog.
It sounded like the man was trying to say something. I got up from the couch and peeked out the window. Absolutely no one out there, not even in the street.
In the
This house
street.
was dark. It was as still as any night in our quiet neighborhood. There's no one out there, I said, looking back to Q. She didn't say anything. I was kind of getting freaked out. Another minute passed, and this time there was whispering, but loud whispering. I remember it sounded like a kid and a woman. Q finally looked up from her computer. It's that doll, she said. Of course she thought it was. She was very superstitious. I gave her a skeptic look. Let me say this. I don't believe in the paranormal. I leant down and picked up the doll. It was fine. Her eyes were closed. I forgot to say that it had a voice box thing in it, but it didn't have any batteries. I put it back down. No, it's not. Just leave it alone, I told her. It was silent again. I went back to my seat on the couch. The rasping started again, and I heard the man say something garbled, followed by wheezing. I jumped up from the couch. I was going to see if it was coming from the backyard. Just as I started walking, I noticed that the doll had moved a little. I picked it up again and turned it over. Its eyes were open, and it was heavier than before. I dropped it, and Q threw it down the basement again. I still have no idea what to think. Q denies it ever happened, and my little cousin never asked about her doll after that. I saw the doll only one time after that, on the top basement step laying on its side. This time, I pushed it down the steps. I was up late reading on a cold night. My bedroom is on the first floor, and I live alone in a relatively quiet and wooded area. For that reason, a lot of my windows didn't have any blinds, since it wasn't as if people driving by were able to look into my house. Plus, I like waking up to the sunlight shining in my bedroom. But this one night made me regret never getting blinds in the bedroom. After finally shutting my reading lamp to get some shut-eye, I had a good 2 minutes of silence before I heard the sound of something hitting the window. It sounded like a single tap from a person's fist.
What?
I was facing away from the window and didn't want to.
How do you knock like that?
I was used to
How do
hearing
you
things
hit?
like tree branches
Let me make it
brush up
bigger.
against the walls and windows, but I distinctly recognized
How
the
do you
sound
knock with your
of a
hand like
fist hitting
this, and then when you
glass.
go to the thing, you go like this? Look,
The thought
it looks
that
like you're going
somebody
like
might be
this.
outside my window watching me frightened me. The fact that somebody would walk all the way onto my property to my bedroom window. I tried to accept that maybe it was just
Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, dong, ding dong, ding dong.
I was sleeping, they would get bored. Another knock at the window came, and I desperately tried to just stay still and show no reactions. But when the fourth knock came routinely,
Boy, you better stop knocking at my door.
I should confront this jerk like a real man.
Nah, I would've came out.
I turned to the
Boy!
window and just barely caught a glimpse of a black shadow quickly moving under the window.
Oh, that's a black
For
person.
some reason, actually seeing something at the window killed any courage I had, and I ran to the kitchen phone and called the police. They said they would have an officer over in 10 minutes. When I hung up, I saw something in the corner of my eye. I turned my head and saw somebody standing outside my kitchen window, surely looking at me. Only for a second though, because as soon as I noticed, he took off. Somebody was watching me through all the windows. Then I received a disturbing phone
If it
call.
was me, I would've been like,
It was my
boy,
neighbor, who also happens to be my best friend.
boy, what you,
He happened to notice through his window that 3 people dressed in black walked onto my property earlier, one of them with a sharp, shiny object in his hand. This only made me panic even more. I ran upstairs where I knew I couldn't be watched and hid in the bathroom. I heard constant single knocks at the front door downstairs.
I'm like, are you looking
No
at the
way
door?
It was the police. I just prayed they would get there in time, and thankfully, moments after the knocking stopped, I heard heavy banging at the front door, followed by someone screaming police. It turned out to be the cops, but whoever the 3 men were already gone into the woods.
Yeah, it's the
More
police!
thankfully,
It's the police! It's the
all I
police!
know is they were never caught, and that I went out to get blinds the same week.
Hey, what? Hey, it's the police! What?
My parents are divorced, and I was living with my dad.
It's the
I'm an only child, so the only time I was around kids my own age was when I was out making friends with kids on the block.
police.
There was this one kid that lived on the corner of my block. His name was Tom. I met him while riding my bike.
It's the police, the police, the police, the police, the police, the police, the police.
He was a lot older than me.
No, he wasn't about this older than him, but this
I found out after hanging out with him a lot that he was an only child as well. He also lived with his dad.
he's your brother.
At first, I found him very relatable. I gave him my phone number and he would call to hang out.
Yeah,
Sometimes
he
would
was
come
asking for
over
the.
and play video games.
Sometimes he would ask for the booty though, but I'm like, dude, I ain't like that. He's like, yes, you are. I'm like, bruh, you better get out of here with that. He's like, but I like the boot. I'm like, bruh, nah, bruh. He's like, bruh, for real, bruh. I'm like, yeah, for real.
He would force me to hang out with Tom, even
He's
though
like,
I told him he was creepy.
he's like, you better go hang out with
I
Tom.
walked with Tom back down the
Dad,
stairs,
but
while
dude,
pretending to
crazy.
listen to him
You
babble
better go
about
out and hang
stupid
out with him.
shit.
Oh,
This kid would never shut up. I needed to find a way to get him to stop looking for me. Then, for the first time, he invited me into his house.
oh my, you wanna go to my house, brother? Play some games.
It didn't seem I had a choice.
Boy, if I wanted to play
The
some
second I
games that
walked
Joe
into the
Freaky
door,
had,
the foul,
I would be not
disgusting
here
odor
right
of
now.
his house filled my lungs. My clothes were tossed all over the floor.
Damn,
Broken glass in one
bro,
corner
give me
of the
2
room,
seconds.
and what looked like
Bro, give me
coffee
2
stains
seconds,
on the
Joe.
wall. It was
God,
the
what you
most
been doing in
disgusting
here?
place I'd ever seen. And then
Smoking?
a huge, shady-looking man
Damn.
walked out from another room. He looked at
You
me
got a
with very
brother coming out the
intimidating
mother,
look.
bro?
I felt myself backing up away from him until Tom introduced him as his father. The man just gave me a big grunt and stomped off into another room. It was official. This kid was a fucking creep. I needed to get away from him for good. I decided I didn't even want to be in that house anymore and just made up some excuse to go. I think that I said that I forgot I had a doctor's appointment, and at that moment, his smile slowly faded as an unhappy, if not extremely angry expression crossed his face. He didn't even give me any response. He just looked at me with this unnerving stare. I left in a hurry and ran back down the block to my house. The door was locked, surprisingly. I unlocked it with the key my dad made me carry and found that he wasn't home. I really wanted him to be home. And then I found a little sticky note on the fridge saying he was called into work for a possible storm emergency. So that night before going to sleep, I checked my email for a response from somebody on eBay. But instead, I had about 5 new emails, all titled in capital letters, and they were all sent from an email named
Boy,
TomTomTroy
boy,
at AOL.com.
boy, boy,
It was him.
boy,
I
boy,
never gave him
boy,
my email and still
boy,
have no idea how
boy,
he got it.
boy,
One of the emails
boy,
was titled,
boy,
"You made a mistake."
boy.
Another was titled, "I know where you live." And the rest were filled with profanity and threats.
Fuck you, motherfucker.
I was
Get
only
back in
12
my
and
house,
was
bitch.
extremely intimidated by
Nigga,
this, so I
hoe
was ready
ass
to call
nigga,
my
I'm about
dad,
to
but
fuck the
as
shit
soon
out
as
of
I
you.
was heading to the
Right
kitchen
now.
phone, I heard the sound of rustling bushes outside.
Man, I would have been
I
like,
opened the blinds
bling
of the
ring
house facing
back.
the bushes,
Ding ring.
and was
Man,
greeted
I'd
by
have
the
been
face
blowing
of
on
a
my
huge
dad or
man
found
who I
out.
instantly
Man, I'd have
recognized
called
as
my
Tom's
dad.
dad. I called the police.
Man, I'll
By the
call
time
my
they
dad.
arrived, he was already gone. When my dad came home early because of the situation, we went on to get a restraining order as soon as possible.
Uh-huh.
Tom and his dad moved out about a month after that.
I have never seen Tom and his
Into a
dad
house that my aunt and uncle had been renting
since
out for
8
several
years ago.
after they built a new place.
8
I
years later.
spent a few months alone before a buddy
I've
from
seen
work
that.
asked if I was looking for a roommate.
Dude, I just
I
put
thought
boot
about it
like,
for a few days and ended up allowing him to move in.
He's like, I'm sleeping.
There was a
I'm
two-bedroom
like, I'm
place with a
saying to
den office in the garage. He decided he wanted his own space, as the bedrooms were right next to each other, so he moved his stuff into the office in the garage. And I have to admit, it was a pretty cool setup he had. The only problem, he didn't have a bathroom or kitchen out there, so he would use the kitchen and toilet in the house. We worked different schedules, so I would often leave the house unlocked for him. One night, I went to my girlfriend's house for dinner.
No, not for dinner,
I
though.
decided to grab a six-pack of beer I had bought the previous night.
Hey,
When I opened the fridge, my beer was gone.
Dude, why
I
you drink all my beer?
and went into a blind rage. I stormed out into the garage and slammed his bedroom door open. He was sleeping and rolled over. I screamed at him, asking why he drank my beer without asking. He said he didn't touch my beer and rubbed the sleep out of his eyes. Having lived with him for a while, I was pretty good at judging when he was lying. I felt he was telling the truth. My heart sank as I came to the realization that somebody had stolen our beer from the fridge and whatever else. We went back into the house and made sure everything was in its place. The TV was there, all the furniture. It wasn't until I went into my bedroom and realized my $2,000 laptop was gone that we began to panic. My buddy called the cops and we searched high and low for the beer and laptop, thinking I might have misplaced them. We soon gave up and began to search the yard for whoever had done this. We didn't live alone in this house, though. There was a room that had been built on several years after the house was built. My aunt's dying mother spent the
I'm like,
last couple
boy,
of
you
years
better
living
stay
there,
from my
as it was
school.
easy for my aunt and uncle to care for her during her sickness. When she died, they began to rent the room out to a strange woman, before eventually moving out themselves and renting the rest of the house out. The woman remained there until we moved in, and my aunt and uncle had their concerns with her. They believed she was a drug addict, which became evident to us during our stay there. She behaved erratically, and we would hear strange noises from her end of the house all hours of the night.
Is it because she was shooting
They
up?
moved in several months after we did, which was
Her
strange
fault.
because her place was a one-bedroom suite.
For real?
We figured he just slept on the couch or something.
Respect.
He was even weirder than her, though. He wouldn't
Nah,
acknowledge
no
me when I
respect.
pulled up into the driveway while he was sitting having a smoke. Trying to make conversation with the guy was pointless. He basically just stared through your soul. One night, he even asked my roommate if he could score him drugs. That night, during our search for the burglar, we went out to the garage door, only to find bare footprints in the snow. The footprints led from their suite door to our garage door. We put two and two together and began banging on their door. We said we knew it was him, and he better answer the door. Someone inside lifted the curtain and made eye contact with me, which to this day still gives me chills. The cops showed up and took down all our information. They scoured the house and found nothing, and no one. We showed them the footprints and explained that the people living in the suite were drug addicts. We gave the officers their names. They ran the names in their cruiser and came back to inform us that the man had a warrant in another province and was convicted of breaking and entering several years back. The cops knocked on their door for several minutes and identified themselves as police officers to no avail. They informed us that because the warrant was from out of province, and technically the man hadn't committed a crime, there was nothing they could do about it. The cops left and it was 1 a.m., so my roommate and I went to bed. The door that connects the two weirdo suite and my part of the house can only be locked from their side of the door. I completely forgot about this before falling asleep. During the night, I heard footsteps outside my door and a few loud bangs. My doorknob began to shake
She was like,
violently.
damn.
I was barely
Usually
awake
you
and
really
brushed it
feel
off as
like-
my roommate. Luckily, I always locked my bedroom door at night. The next morning, I asked my roommate what was so important at 3 a.m. that he would need to try and get in my room. He told me he slept through the night and hadn't even got up to go to the bathroom. My heart sank. I told him what had happened during the night. I have never been more glad that I locked my door at night, due to some silly childhood fear that I've held onto into adulthood. To this day, I wonder what would have happened if I left my bedroom door open and that man got into my room. Needless to say, me and my buddy moved out of that place a few weeks later.
I'd be like, bro, you can stay here though. You don't have to leave.
It happened on my
You ain't
friend's
have to leave.
21st birthday.
He was like, yes, I
We
do.
were
I
throwing
gotta
like a
leave.
big party filled with alcohol. There were a lot of people I didn't know there. It was just chaotic in the house. There were probably 100 people. But even in all the chaos, I noticed one shady character that stood out. There was an older man sitting in the corner of the room, just kind of watching everybody drinking and dancing. I didn't think much about it at first, assuming it was someone's dad or uncle or something. But as the night died down, and more than half of the guests had already left, the man was still there, by himself in the corner. At that point, I asked one of my friends who that guy was, and he said he had no idea. We decided to wait until most of the guests had left, figuring maybe he would too. And when the last of the guests were gone, we went back into the living room, and surely enough, he was gone. I felt relieved immediately, even though it wasn't even my house. That man just seemed so out of place, and it was downright creepy.
Wait.
Falling asleep was easy with all the alcohol running through my veins, but staying asleep was a problem. I woke up in the middle of the night, feeling insanely thirsty and having to go to the bathroom. I first went to the bathroom since it was closer, and then went up to the kitchen and got a glass of water. When I went back down to the den and laid back down on the couch, I noticed that the sliding door to the coat closet across from the couch opened slightly. It was too dark to see anything else though, like anything inside of it. I felt a chill run down my spine as I remembered the creepy man sitting in the corner. The idea of that man hiding in the closet immediately popped into mind. I continued to lay still, under the assumption that he was watching me through the open door of the closet. I began to plan my escape. I could jump over the other couch and land right next to the stairway upstairs to the living room, but I just had to gather up the courage to do it. Then I saw the closet door slide open a little more, and that's when I got the courage to run for it. I jumped over the couch and ran up the stairs. I could hear the closet door fully slide open and somebody running after me. I screamed at my friends who were on the couches to wake up. All three of my friends that were in the living room woke up and looked at me as if I were crazy. I knew that we now outnumbered him 4-1, so I looked at the stairs and waited, but he never came up. My friends demanded an explanation, so I told them that the creepy man from earlier was hiding in the coat closet, and he almost chased me up the stairs. Just then, we heard the back door from down in the den open up, and we all looked at each other. We called the cops, but the man was never found. He simply left through the back door.
Then I eat the llama. Then you look like a llama, and you smell like a llama.
One night, I was walking to my car. I think it was about 11 or 11:30.
I like
As a
llamas.
safety protocol, all the employees left together, and the security guard would watch from the sidewalk to make sure we all got to our cars all right. I was approaching my car when I heard a car pull up behind me. I turned around and there was a woman with her teenage daughter in the passenger seat. She rolled the window down and started giving me a story about how they just came into town to visit family and that they're out of gas and have no money, and then asked if they could borrow a few dollars. I told them the truth, which was that I had no cash on me. I never carried cash. So she just looked at me and asked very hurriedly if I would get into the car with them, go to the gas station, buy them about $10 worth of gas. I mean, obviously I said no, and she asked a few more times. It wasn't until I had said no that I noticed the daughter in the passenger seat had been staring at me the whole time, and she was licking her lips and wringing her fingers. At that point, I bolted back to the store where the security guard was, because they had pulled up behind my car, so I would have been stuck there. I told him what had happened. He started walking to their car, and they sped away. Working the night shift always sucked. I work in an office building and would constantly do the night shift.
Hold on. Isn't that good? Isn't that good?
I was the only person on the floor I worked on, possibly in the whole building. There would always be a kind of eerie feeling to being in such a big building with most of the lights out and absolutely no one around. But on the upside, it was peaceful and less stressful, and I was able to get a lot of work done. There was this one night, though. It was a Friday night, around 2 in the morning.
It's Friday. Gotta get down on Friday.
It sounded like just a random crack through the walls or something. It's unusual in this building, but I didn't get too concerned about it. I resumed typing away and was once again interrupted by a sound. This time, the sound of a computer starting up. It caught me off guard. I was sure nobody else was working the night shift.
I was
I
working
stood
night
up on my
shift.
chair to get a view over the cubicle walls. The glare of a computer screen in the dark was visible in a cubicle on the opposite side of the room. Then I did something stupid, something I regret. I asked if there was anybody there in a yell, hoping to get an answer from a fellow employee. But instead, I saw the glaring light of the computer monitor across the room turn off, and there was once again nothing but darkness on that side of the room.
Bruh.
I started getting nervous. I turned off the lamp and computer screen so that I wouldn't give away my position to whoever that was. I crouched down and tiptoed out across to a nearby cubicle. There was just utter silence. I sat waiting for something to happen for God knows how long, but I eventually decided the coast was clear. I tiptoed down past all the cubicles until I reached the opening near the exit door to the stairs and elevators, and that's when I realized that my fearful suspicion was true. There was a man crouched down behind a plant in the corner of the room, dressed in all black. I felt my heart sink as I noticed him, but it didn't seem like he knew that I noticed him. I turned back to the stairway door. There was no way I was going to wait for the elevator to take a chance.
No. It's my house.
Proceeding to walk down the stairs.
Can't go.
After making it down about 2 flights of stairs, I heard the door above me push open aggressively, followed by manic, echoing footsteps coming fast down the stairs. I raced down the stairs, running as fast as I could.
Boy,
While the
run.
footsteps above me were getting louder.
Yes.
I finally made it to the first floor,
Yes,
raced through
man.
the lobby, and out the front door.
Yes, ma'am.
Whoever was in there didn't follow me.
Yes, thank
I
God.
immediately called the cops, along with one of my
God.
bosses.
You could have
The bosses
died, young
were all
man.
scheduled to work except for me. The cops scanned the place from top to bottom.
Young man, you
There
could
was
have
no one
died.
there.
You could have
Couldn't make
died.
out with any description other than he was wearing all black. I did continue
Boy,
to do
you
night
could have
shift for
died.
about a week after that, with my boss allowing me to lock all possible
Boy.
entrances to the floor, including the elevators. But I still wasn't comfortable with it. So ever since, I've been doing the day shifts.
Boy, you
It
died.
was 4 a.m. on a Saturday night. I woke up
It's
to my stomach
Saturday,
rumbling.
Saturday.
Nothing is worse than
Gotta
falling
get
asleep
down
in
on
bed.
Saturday.
So I got
Gotta
out of
get
bed
down
and made
on
my way to the kitchen to make a
Saturday,
sandwich.
Saturday.
Immediately, I noticed that the cabinet was open. I'm always super obsessive over closing everything I open, so I couldn't believe that I had done that. I found it more odd than most people would. That's just how I am. Most people would shut the cabinet and forget about it, but I went as far as investigating around the house for any unwanted guests. There was nobody in any of the closets I checked, but when I went down to the den, the back door was wide open. I was certain now that someone had been in my house. I somehow had the balls to step outside and turn on the patio light, and there was somebody sitting in one of the patio chairs. He looked at me with a blank expression and got up slowly. He looked filthy, almost homeless. His
Boy,
hair
why
was
you
down
in
to
my
his
house
shoulders.
acting dirty?
He started walking closer to me.
Boy, you
I
gotta
couldn't
back
tell what
up.
his intentions were, and I kind of just stood there, almost taking
I
him
was
as
like,
harmless.
boy, you better
But
back
he
up.
suddenly lunged at me.
I don't
and
like
barely
dirty
had time
people.
to shut the door and lock it. We stared each other down for 10 seconds through the glass, until I finally realized I should be taking that time to call the cops. I ran to the kitchen to get the phone, and as I was dialing, I noticed when I got back that he was already gone. I still called the cops, but nothing was ever found of the man.
Boy.
This is a very weird story that took place a few months ago. I still live in the same house this happened in.
Why?
I have an electrical outlet under my bed that I use to charge my phone with. I leave my phone up on the ledge above my bed every night, usually using it as an alarm. However, something strange started happening on a Monday night in February. I woke up to my alarm clock blasting. Only it was still dark out. I looked at my actual alarm clock sitting on my desk. It was 4 in the morning. I wasn't sure if I'd accidentally set a new alarm. The alarm was titled Down. I unset it and went back to sleep, not overthinking it. The next night, I woke up again to the sound of my phone's alarm clock blasting. I saw that the time was 3 in the morning, and the alarm clock title was set to Beneath. No way had I set that alarm. I would remember something like that.
Down beneath.
I figured my brother was playing a joke on me somehow. The next morning, I told my dad to tell him to stop messing with my alarm clock, that it's interrupting my actual sleep on school nights. But he swore on his life that he had never touched it, and I kind of believed him. That night, I put a password on my phone and wrote it on a sticky note just for safekeeping. I hid the sticky note on the wall behind my bed and made sure no extra alarms were set. The only one was set for 8 a.m. I fell asleep, but once again, I woke up to the blasting alarm clock in total darkness.
Down beneath your bed.
It's 2 a.m. The alarm was titled
The
I was a
bed.
little freaked out now.
Down beneath the
Something was
bed.
really wrong with my phone. I was sure someone was hacking into it. The next day, I left it off for the whole day in hopes that whoever was messing with it would forget about it. And that night, I used my actual alarm clock on my desk as an alarm instead. I set it to 8 a.m. and went to sleep. But when I woke up, there was once again no sunlight. My alarm clock was off, so I couldn't see the time. It was my phone. It had been moved to the ledge. But the alarm clock sound wasn't the usual marimba. It was some kind of distorted screaming sound.
The fuck? Bro, I'd have been so scared. I'd be like, oh,
I turned
yo.
off the alarm.
I'd have been like, Jerry, what do you
It was
want?
1 in the morning.
Underneath the
I
bed.
was laying there clueless, not knowing what to think. My phone was at 10%, so I reached down under my bed to try and find a charger that's normally plugged into the wall. It was missing. And then, at the worst possible time, I realized exactly what it all meant. The 4 alarm titles formed a sentence. Down, beneath, the bed. I tried to pull my arm away, but it was too late. I felt a hand grab my arm and squeeze tight. I screamed as loud as I could, loud enough for all the neighbors to hear. I heard my parents' bedroom door open and footsteps running over to my room. My door opened and my dad barged in with a baseball bat. He saw that I was being pulled down to the edge of my bed. My dad reached under my bed and grabbed a hold of the man hiding under. He knocked him out with the bat and called the cops. The man clearly didn't plan that out, as he basically trapped himself under my bed. Police told us that he's a registered sex offender who had been arrested 10 times. He's extremely messed up in the head, and clearly gains pleasure from messing with and scaring his victims. It scares me the most that he was in our house and under my bed for 4 days.
What have he been eating? Booty flakes?
The most horrifying experience that ever happened to me didn't even directly happen to me. I have a friend that I'll call Ty.
Why would he eat booty
We would
flakes?
hang out or at least text every day. There was
Yes.
this one day that he didn't respond to any of my texts or
High
calls.
booty flakes,
I went over
face,
to his house,
flakes,
which was a block
face,
away, to see if
flakes,
he was
face.
alright.
Then flake,
knocked and
face,
rang, but
flake,
he didn't
flake,
answer,
flake.
which was
And you
weird
gotta
because
eat
his
the
car
booty
was there.
flakes like groceries.
I got the feeling he wanted to be left alone. But late that night, I got a FaceTime request from an unknown number. I cautiously answered it with the camera aimed away from my face. A face popped up on the screen, and it was Ty. I felt so relieved and showed my face. When I got a little better look at his face, I noticed he looked different. Like, a lot more tired and, I don't know, paranoid, I guess.
I don't know, what's
And
up,
he was also
Ty?
in an unfamiliar room. I asked him where he was and why he wasn't answering, to which he responded that he was fine and he was at home. I asked him whose phone he was using, and he just took a long pause before answering. He just blankly stared at the camera until finally answering that he was using his uncle's phone. That was really weird, but before I could question him further, he all of a sudden demands that I lend him $10,000 and that he'll pay me back. I can't help but laugh at this until I see that he's serious. More than just serious. His facial expression filled with what looked like worry. I asked him why the hell he needed so much money, and there was once again a huge pause, with him just staring into the camera. He finally says he has to go, and with that, the call ended. It was probably one of the weirdest and most unnerving experiences of my life. I had never seen him act so weird. Something was clearly wrong with him. But it was late, and I figured I would just go over to his house tomorrow and talk with him. The next day, first thing in the morning, I went straight over to his house and rang the doorbell about 10 times.
He died.
He didn't answer. I eventually gave it up as a lost cause. If he wanted to act sketchy, that was his problem. But late that night, around the same time, I received another FaceTime call from another unknown number. I answered it, and it was again Ty. But this time, he looked like shit. His hair was a mess. He had a cut on his forehead. He had bags under his eyes. I didn't understand what the hell was wrong with him. He wouldn't tell me anything. He just kept demanding $10,000 to be paid to some random address, to which I kept telling him no. And then he said something that still haunts me. He said in a shaky, nervous voice, "Come on, don't point a gun at my back." It hit me like a bullet as he said this, accompanied with an ever so slightly twitch of his left eye, to which I interpreted as a wink. But then, the call ended abruptly, and I can only imagine what was going to happen to him. By some miracle, I remembered the address and sent the cops there right away. It was an old abandoned house on a basically deserted block miles away from my house. They found Ty in the basement, beaten senseless and barely alive, but they got to him just in time. The sicko that did this to him was already long gone. Ty doesn't like to talk about it, but the most he told me was that he was walking home before everything went black, and he woke up in a dark basement.
Why you always doing that, dude? I'm gonna beat you up. How long until I got this? How long until I got remain? Oh, my battery is dead. Won't tell me how long I got until this thing is. They always put good people on sync. Beat to the 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 beat. You get the key, the key, the key. I got the keys, the keys, the keys, the keys, the keys.
I started at 16 in my town in the suburb.
That's another thing about the pizza,
At first,
pizza,
they put me to
the
help
pizza,
chef
pizza,
in the
pizza,
kitchen
pizza,
and
pizza,
clean the
pizza,
place and
pizza.
stuff.
I got the keys, keys, keys,
2
got the
months
keys,
later,
keys,
my
the keys,
boss told me
got the
that
keys
on
to
the
the
days
pizza, the
off of
pizza, the
being
keys, the keys to the
delivery
pizza.
boy, I would deliver, and I said yes, of course.
No,
Then
of
all of a
course.
sudden, the delivery boy quit when he came from delivering a pizza at this one house. He looked traumatized and shaken, like something with his face and his eyes. He went into my boss's office and they argued for about 15 minutes. Then he came out and said, "Good luck, kid," then told me he had quit. I asked why, and he said, "Just a shitty job, that's all." He then patted me on the back and left. I knew it was something else than just a shitty job, but I didn't think much of it. That was the last time I saw him. So for the next couple of weeks, I was the delivery boy till they could find someone that can deliver pizzas. About 2 weeks into me delivering pizzas, my boss gave me the address to a house, and as usual, I put in the GPS and went over. Watching the sunset while driving over there, I was hoping it'd take 2 minutes tops so I could get home. Unfortunately, it was in the rural side of town, where the houses are like a quarter mile from each other. I stopped in front of the 2-floor house and looked at it. I got the creepiest feels when I stared at it. Lawn not cut, with weeds, dead trees, and The old porch with no chairs or flower pots or tables, just plain. It seemed abandoned, but I got out anyways and knocked on the door. I was hoping my boss gave me the wrong address or something so I could get the hell out of there. Then the door lock started to shake and the door opened. It was an old lady, at least 70 years old or something around there, with white hair, teeth missing, and skinny, very short too, but her eyes just glaring at me. It really freaked me out. I figured if I was nice, things would turn out okay after all. "Pepperoni pizza, ma'am?" I said as friendly as I could. "Yes," she said with a hoarse voice as if she had a sore throat. "Alrighty, here you go." I handed the pizza over, but she just looked at it with no emotion and didn't take it, getting her purse. "Did you come with someone else?" I froze, then quickly looked up at her, still glaring at me. That question really frightened me. No," I said. "Where's the other one? He ran off on me last time he came." Ran off, I thought. It didn't make sense. "He quit some weeks ago," I said. Then she got her purse and started searching for money, or so I thought. She did for about a minute, the longest minute ever, and with the hands in her purse, she stopped and looked at me, not in a look of surprise or in confusion, but just like as if she was thinking really hard on something. I could tell she was holding something in her right hand inside the purse, but I couldn't see what. I really started to freak out at this point.
I'd have been like,
What if it was pepper spray, or a knife, or even a gun? I mean, what could take her so long to get $10 out of her purse? Then, behind her, I saw a shadow, a silhouette of a man coming to the door, and all of a sudden, I heard footsteps crushing the leaves on my left side next to the porch, and a man's deep voice saying, "Hey." I looked over and saw a head of a middle-aged man with a look of anger peeking over the porch. This guy then started to climb the porch, and that was when I realized I had enough. I darted to my car, threw the pizza inside, turned it on, and drove off. I didn't look back as I drove off in the dark. I had to lie and pay for the pizza out of my own pocket, but it was worth it. On the day I quit, I decided to tell my boss what happened that evening, to which he freaked out as well and asked me why I hadn't told him. He said James told him something like he just walks out of there and didn't pay attention to her. My boss then called the cops to look into the sketchy situation, and he told me I could leave. About 2 days later, he called back, saying the cops had the house registered as foreclosed for over a year, and they found 3 people living in there when they broke in, which were 2 men and the old lady I encountered. They were arrested, and he didn't tell me anything else. I'm still traumatized, and I don't know what would have happened if I would have waited. They could have easily jumped me, but thank God I quit afterwards, and I'm still alive. I'll never forget the time I was covering my friend's shift at a pizzeria we worked at.
I would never
He was
cover
the
him up.
delivery
Man,
man,
you better work
and I was
yourself.
the one manning the
I'm
register.
working for you.
And
You
that night,
bring your
I
baby.
made 2 real deliveries to normal people. Then, my manager gave me one final delivery for the night. It was 5 miles away, which was a lot
Like
farther
5 miles
than I
away.
was used to.
Brrr. I'd have been like,
The
wait,
GPS told me to turn off the highway into some very quiet town. Somehow, I'd never even heard of this town. The GPS took me down
40,
some
40,
side roads that were
45,
even more
50,
dead than the
70,
main streets in this
78.
town. Half of the streetlights weren't even on. I didn't like the lights of this place. I just wanted to deliver the pizza and be gone. So I arrived to the house. It was a single-floor little thing. I rang the bell, and almost immediately, the door swung
Yeah,
open.
crazy.
There was an older man, maybe in his upper 50s, that opened the door. His few hairs left on his head were gray, and he had a very pale face with a gray mustache.
And
He
I'll
gave me a
go
smile
through
and told me he'd be
fire.
right back.
I
He
will
walked away into
take
his
you
house out of view, and I
like
just stood there in the cold, waiting for him. I was a little uncomfortable with the area, and the looks of the guy answering didn't help.
So I smacked
The
her
sound
with
of
the
stomping on the
bean.
creaky floors inside the house came to the door. as the man appeared back in the doorway with a smile. He said I should come inside where it's warm while I waited. I cannot justify my actions, but it was like 5 degrees outside.
It was just
I
like
foolishly stepped inside the sketchy stranger's house. He shut the door behind me and stepped off into another
Can't
room.
hear
in a hurry.
anything.
It
Wrong
wasn't
earphone.
much warmer in the house. He clearly didn't even have a heating system. I found myself creeping closer and closer to the door as I got more uncomfortable. Then, the man came out of another room and gave me another smile. He opened up a door, apparently leading to the basement. He looked down and told me that he normally leaves his money down there. He asked me to come down there with him, but I
Bruh.
refused. Even from where I was standing, I could see it was totally pitch dark down there. And then, what happened next is where it all fell apart.
You gotta run, bruh.
I heard the sound of a creaking step coming from the basement. Somebody else was down there. I decided it was time to go and turned around to open the door, but the man was already right on top of me. I punched him in the face and managed to get him in a hold, but I heard somebody stomping up the basement steps, and I had to get out of there. I pushed the man to the floor, ran outside, got in my car, and drove off without looking back. I told my manager everything, and he called the cops, but I don't know whatever became of that. My manager gave me a couple days off afterwards. Since then, I am much wiser to the fact that you should never enter a stranger's house. I was out doing a delivery one late night. It was probably the longest drive I have ever taken for a pizza delivery. From the pizza place I worked at, it was a 20-minute drive, which isn't too crazy out where I live. Plus, they ordered 4 large pies, so I figured it was a party and I would get a much bigger tip. Navigating the dirt roads at night was always annoying, though. I pulled up to the given address.
Pretty light,
It was some old, sketchy-looking building, literally in the middle of a forest clearing. There were no cars parked anywhere, or any lights on. I put my car in park and called my boss. I asked him to reread the address at least 3 times to make sure I typed it in right, but that checked out. I could tell he was in a really bitchy mood, and he told me to at least knock on the door and check it out. He would normally get mad if we took back 1 pie. I was afraid of what he would do if I brought back 4. I was insanely unnerved, but got out anyway and forced myself to the front door of the building. There was no doorbell, so I just knocked really hard. I heard nothing.
Open the door!
I was extremely disappointed. Not because nobody answered the door, but because I was realizing that it was all a waste of time and gas. I knocked 1 more time out of desperation.
Bro, I'm getting my money!
And
Hold on!
rustling noises from inside of the building. I knocked again and yelled that I was the pizza guy.
I'm the pizza guy.
I felt a bit more uncomfortable now than
Bruh,
before.
I'm feeling more
Before I could
uncomfortable
turn
that you're
around,
not here.
I noticed something at the window.
Not trying to get this pizza.
Someone looking through the window.
It took me a long time to
Couldn't
get
tell
here.
if it was a man or a woman.
But if you don't want the pizza, you ain't getting the pizza.
Their eyes were open wider than I knew possible, staring intently at me. I was disturbed enough by this and dropped the pizzas and ran back to my car. The shitty thing wouldn't start until turning the key for the 3rd time. I drove off the grass and back onto the dirt road, but I felt the car rocking about, shaking and bumping. Something wasn't right. I didn't make it far from the building before I started hearing a sharp scraping sound coming from outside. There was so much resistance that I couldn't even drive. The car came to a stop.
You better
I got out of the car to check what the hell was wrong. A chill ran up my spine as I began to feel like my heart was constantly skipping beats.
I don't know how you like my
Tires had been slashed and had completely fallen off the rim.
personality.
Not just the front though. All 4
You
tires
got
were
the
slashed.
stringy head, you got a wonderful
Somebody
sister.
did this when I was knocking on the door to that building. Instead of running, I got back in the car and locked the doors.
I know you like my personality.
Practically see it from where I
I could
was.
practically
For the
taste
trees
it.
blocking the view. I dialed 911 and explained everything to the operator. She told me the
I
cops
forgot what
would be over as
game
soon
I
as
was hearing this
possible,
off
and
of.
that I need to stay
I gotta
hidden.
think of it.
I asked her if it was advisable to stay in
It
the
was one of those house games. You know, one of those house scary games? Man, you being terrified, bruh.
shaken, like something with his face and his eyes. He went into my boss's office and they argued for about 15 minutes. Times to make sure I typed it in right, but that checked out. I could tell he was in a really bitchy mood, and he told me to at least knock on the door and check it out.
Yeah, at least knock on the
I'd
door.
normally get mad if we took back one pie, but I was afraid.
Pizza pie.
I was insanely unnerved, but got out anyway.
I'd be like, bring me a pizza pie.
There was no doorbell, so I just knocked really hard.
Bro, you better open the door. What do you want?
Didn't really expect to hear anything.
Open that door.
Not because nobody answered the door, because I was realizing that it was all a waste of time and gas.
I was like, you know how long it
Time
took me?
out of desperation.
Bro, I'm the pizza pie guy. I'm the pie guy.
I began to hear some kind of
Bro, I
rustling
ain't
as
really
I
know
was
why.
in the building.
The pie and pizza is the same thing, bro. No, it's not. They got a different name. It goes the same pizza pie, pie pizza.
There was
What's the
silence
difference?
I felt a bit more uncomfortable now than before. But before I could turn around, I noticed something at the window. There was someone looking through the window. I couldn't tell if
Hey
it
there,
was a man
one
or a woman.
day. So I asked for the
All I
pee
noticed
pee.
were their eyes.
It said it didn't have one, so I'm like, oh, what kind of person are you? He's like, I'm a pee pee guy. I'm like, what?
Me.
You're staring at me? Who you staring at? Who you staring at?
The shitty thing wouldn't start until turning the key for the third time.
Man, I would've took one of the pizza
I
pies.
drove off the grass and back onto the dirt road, but I felt the car rocking about, shaking and bumping.
But like,
Something was
dude
away.
tried to touch me, so I kept all my
Didn't
pizza
make it
pie.
far from the building before I started
I dropped
hearing a
two,
sharp
that
scraping
kept
sound
one of
coming
them.
from outside. There was so much resistance that I couldn't even drive. The car came to a stop. I got out of the car to check what the hell was wrong. A chill ran up my spine as I began to feel like my heart was constantly skipping beats. My tires had been slashed and had completely fallen off the rim. Not just the front though. All four tires were slashed. I realized somebody did this when I was knocking on the door to that building. Instead of running, I got back in the car and locked the doors. I was so close to that building, I could practically see it from where I was, if it weren't for the trees blocking the view. I dialed 911 and explained everything to the operator. She told me the cops would be over as soon as possible and that I need to stay hidden. I asked her if it was advisable to stay in the car or run, and she told me it would be best to stay in the car with the door locked. She asked me to stay on the line with her until the cops arrived. My whole body was shaking. In all directions, there was nothing but dark, seemingly endless forest. I knew it would take forever for the cops to get there. I was not comfortable with sitting in that car so close to whoever did this. The next part, though, is what utterly destroyed me. It still shakes me to this day, and I hope nobody ever has to experience this kind of fear. As I was scanning all the windows, making sure nobody was outside, I looked in the rearview mirror, and there was the same person I saw at that window. Eyes open wider than ever. I could see now that it was a woman, and I could ever so slightly see a smile begin to spread across her face. I opened my door and full-on sprinted into the woods, not caring how much noise I made. I ran until I was out of breath, which didn't take long, and I hid behind a giant log on the ground. I tried to cover my loud breathing with my hand as I waited and waited for what felt like hours, until I finally heard sirens in the distance. I gathered up all the stamina I had left to run all the way back in the direction of the dirt road.
Man, I can keep my stamina.
Eventually, front of my car, investigating with flashlights. I came out yelling at them like a lunatic to help me. I fell to the floor and started to gag, almost throwing up from running so much. They picked me up and began to question me, to which I explained everything to the best of my ability. One of the two cars drove over to the building, and the two officers began to search the building.
And I drunk to throw up.
They came back with nothing except for a couple of spiky objects.
When I drunk my throw up.
These objects
That
were
was
exactly the same as the ones
terrifying.
used to slash my tires. The cops guessed that it was some kind of sick, demented couple, being that I saw the woman, but unfortunately they were never found, and that still kills me to this day. I obviously quit my job right after that and started working at a local grocery store. I know that I'll never forget seeing that woman at the back of my car.
Bruh. Why do they work alone? If I work at a pizza place and I have to go pay pizza to the people, I am always going to keep like my friend with me, somebody that has a gun. I'm like, yo. I'll be like, listen, you wanna be that face though? Did y'all see that smile? Cause I'm the other person, man. 2005. I was older than that in 2005. I was like, how am I now? About it. I'm 18, so. Yeah, I don't believe that, but that's funny. I don't want to be 18 though.
She saw her cowering under the chutes like a little girl. The young woman, whose name has not been disclosed, shook her grandmother vigorously to get her attention. When the grandmother finally regained composure, she claimed that she saw a red figure standing by the door, one that she could only describe as Satan. The grandmother stated that she has never hallucinated in her life, and that she knows what she saw was real.
A 67-year-old retired teacher came to the hospital claiming that she had visions of odd-looking faces hovering over her. But she wasn't going crazy, and laboratory tests also ruled out two common culprits of hallucination: infection and drug interactions. In fact, the patient and her family were so concerned in the days before she came to the hospital, they asked a priest about performing an exorcism. The woman drew a picture of what she saw. The faces had large teeth, eyes and ears, and a horizontally elongated shape like a football.
I'm done. Do y'all hear this dude's voice? I don't want to listen to this dude's voice. If it's gonna be this type of video, we're gonna skip. What is this about? Another ship? No, we're done here. We're done here. We're gonna... Later we're gonna lift up... We're gonna... Ooh, hold on.
Huh?
But Arnold, come on, Arnold. Man, and she come down there and kill both of y'all. Bruh.
Come on. Alright, let's see if you can handle this.
Dude, leg almost got shot off. They both died, but they wasn't both. Oh no, at least she stepped over me though. It's really from the app store. Yeah, guess what? Gaming videos coming your way. I'm not editing this video. You know how long editing is for me. You know how long editing is for me. Oh, this is long editing. Now it's gonna be longer because you see how long this video is. I had a video that was about like 2 hours long. It was supposed to be like a slide, like it was supposed to be one of these reaction videos, but a scary reaction video. Oh my god, I was terrified. But somebody called me, and I couldn't get the call out my phone, so I couldn't do it. But since I said I'm gonna do it today, so y'all know what it is. It's Mr. Monster that made the video. He's a pretty good dude, though. I swear. Like, he makes scary videos. I don't know why I make my voice get that high, but I do it because I want to. Cause you like my personality. You got the stringy hair, got the bad, you got I'm a wonderful sister, I be. Mighty man and I'm young and I'm in my pride. Mighty man and I'm young and I'm in my pride. Oh, I'm 6 feet tall, but I still don't have no hammerdones. What? Mister! Oh! Hey, Cosworth! Cosworth, I do not want to kill you. I can't kill you because how much up. Listen, Cosworth. Listen. Run! Cosworth, calm down. Ain't nobody. I ain't even do anything. Cosworth. This Cosworth. Come here. Don't. Cosworth, stop trying to. Hey, Mickey Lump. Hey, why you hit me? Okay. Okay. I said okay. You had to try to. Oh, Cosworth, you hated that? Oh. Oh my god, Cosworth. See, I'm playing the game right now. Because I'm a mighty man and I'm young and I'm in my pride.